Last year, my brother took his kids to see Transformers 1, and afterwards he asked me, has Optimus Prime always had an axe? And it got me to thinking. Here was this movie dedicating a big, dramatic moment to the unveiling of what fans recognise as one of Optimus Prime's signature weapons. And yet, here was a representative of the casual audience who had no clue that's what he was seeing. So that thought led me to this episode, looking at the origins and history of this weapon, and how it became one of the Autobot leaders' most iconic. These are the basics on Optimus Prime's axe. Optimus Prime's axe debuted way back in 1984, in the second episode of the original Transformers cartoon. Facing off against Megatron on top of Sherman Dam, Prime retracted his right fist into his forearm and in its place generated a battle axe made of glowing yellowy-orange energy, an idea that episode writer George Arthur Bloom noted in his script was inspired by the lightsabers of Star Wars. In response, Megatron produced a weapon of his own, a purple flail, and after a brief exchange of blows, used it to knock Optimus from the dam into the raging floodwaters below. Now, this was the only appearance of Prime and Megatron's energy weapons in the whole cartoon. They were just two of the many one-off gadgets seen in the series, invented for a scene on the fly and forgotten afterwards. But from its unique, exciting location to the dramatic visual contrast of advanced robots fighting with sci-fi versions of ancient medieval weapons, Prime and Megatron's battle on Sherman Dam was an instantly memorable one, and left an obvious mark on the franchise even from early on. In 1985, the Dam battle was referenced in two separate mail-away promotional posters, and adapted into comic form as the two-part story Decepticon Dam Busters, published in issues number 29 and 30 of the British Transformers comic. The same year, footage of the battle was prominently included in the opening sequence of the Japanese broadcast of the cartoon. And this spotlight seems to have made the weapons especially memorable to Japanese audiences, as it was in the Japanese market that Optimus Prime's axe would first reappear. Across the late 1990s and early 2000s, multiple non-transforming figures of Optimus Prime were released in Japan, which included the axe as an accessory, the very first being an extremely rare limited-run pre-order bonus with the 1999 Metal Force Optimus figure. In 2003, the axe then made the jump to being included with actual transforming toys, starting with a reissue of the original Generation 1 Optimus figure, and most significantly, the internationally released 20th anniversary Masterpiece Optimus Prime toy, which was the first to identify the weapon as an Energon axe, the name by which it's now commonly called. The axe's inclusion with this standout high-profile figure really cemented its status as one of Prime's signature weapons, second only to his laser rifle, and in the 2 decades since, it's come to be a standard accessory included with many new figures based on Optimus's original G1 design, from fully transforming toys to non-transforming action figures, model kits, figurines, statues, and more. 2003 also marked the axe's reappearance in New Transformers Stories, when it showed up in both the Dreamwave Productions comic book The War Within and the manga Battle of the Stargate. Optimus has used the weapon in many more stories since. It most frequently appears in comics, but it's also been prominently featured in works such as the 2015 video game Devastation and 2016's Prime Wars trilogy of animated series. Outside the nostalgia-fueled world of Generation 1, however, other incarnations of Optimus Prime haven't wielded an axe quite as consistently. The first non-G1 media to pay homage to the idea was the 2007 live-action movie, which armed its Optimus with a new bladed weapon inspired by, but distinct from, the axe. A retractable wrist-mounted sword that he could charge with orange energy, which he used to decapitate the Decepticon Bone Crusher. Prime would continue to use this sword in the movie's various sequels, with 2009's Revenge of the Fallen even equipping him with a second blade in his left arm, and these weapons went on to become pretty iconic in their own right. On the flip side, also in 2007, was Transformers Animated. This was the first modern cartoon to depict Optimus wielding an axe, but it handled the idea very differently, in a way that owed virtually nothing to the original. You see, the main Autobot cast of this series were workers, not soldiers, so they didn't have guns. Optimus transformed into a fire engine, and thus used a firefighter's axe as his weapon. Instead of being built into his wrist, the axe was handheld. Its metal blade could expand to generate a larger, more powerful blade made of blue energy, and it also featured a telescoping handle and a rear-mounted rocket to add power to Prime's swings. The concept of Optimus using a handheld axe instead of a built-in one proved an enduring one. Many new figures of Optimus in the 2010s and 20s came with handheld axe accessories, usually coloured orange to evoke the original cartoon. Some of the first media to adopt the idea after animated included the 2010 video game War for Cybertron, which armed Prime with a huge two-handed battle axe nearly as big as he was, and the 2011 movie Dark of the Moon, which added an axe to the live-action Prime's arsenal that he used to take off Megatron's head at the film's climax. These were the exceptions, though. In most major media of the 2010s, Prime still didn't make widespread use of an axe, with the new series at this time instead taking their lead from the movies and arming the Autobot leader with swords of various kinds. However, at the end of the decade, the axe would at last rise up to take the sword's place as his primary melee weapon across most mainstream media, though each new series continued to depict it in their own way, either as built-in or handheld, as a conventional blade that can be charged with energy, or as a pure energy weapon like the original. 2018's Transformers Cyberverse took the axe back to basics, presenting it as an integrated weapon that deployed from Prime's arm. Meanwhile, 2022's Transformers Earthspark armed its version of Prime with multiple different axes, including small one-handed models and a larger two-handed polearm. These axes were handheld, but paid homage to the original by storing inside Prime's arms and ejecting for battle via his wrist. A similar method of axe storage was also featured in the 2023 movie Rise of the Beasts. Notably, both the Cyberverse and Earthspark cartoons coloured their axes blue like animated instead of the classic yellowy orange. These colours were harmonised for the weapon's appearance in 2024's Transformers 1, in which the blade glowed in both hues. In this film's version of the story, the axe was given much greater significance. It was originally the weapon of Zeta Prime, legendary first bearer of the mystic matrix of leadership, and it was more than a simple cleaving weapon, able to hurl blades of energy to strike foes from afar. When Optimus inherited the Matrix and became Prime, he also inherited the ability to generate Zeta's axe, and used its power to soundly defeat Megatron in the two leaders' first battle. Megatron's flail has followed a similar trajectory to Optimus's axe, returning as a toy accessory in the early 2000s and going on to appear in film, cartoons and comics over the following decades. But it doesn't tend to show up as often as Prime's weapon, and it doesn't feel like it's reached quite the same iconic status. So hopefully that answers the question. While it hasn't always been at the cutting edge of every story, and it's only in recent years that focus on it has sharpened, yes, Optimus Prime has always had an axe. And those are the basics on Optimus Prime's axe. This episode kicks off a season of videos all about concepts and characters related to the Autobot leader. So celebrate the summer of Optimus Prime by becoming a channel member or signing up on Patreon to get early access to every new episode.